The morning sun filtered through the glass-paneled windows of the town's largest bank, casting a warm glow on the bustling lobby. Customers shuffled in and out, some clutching paperwork while others waited impatiently in line. The rhythmic tapping of keyboards and the faint rustle of papers filled the air, blending with the occasional polite exchange between customers and employees. For most, it was just another ordinary day. Nia Patterson stepped into the bank with an air of quiet confidence. Dressed in a sharp navy blue blazer and carrying a leather briefcase, she moved with purpose. Her heels clicked softly against the tiled floor as she paused near the entrance, taking in the scene. To anyone watching, she appeared to be just another professional handling routine financial matters. But if they had looked closer, they might have noticed her deliberate gaze scanning the room, her eyes lingering on the staff and their interactions. At the far end of the lobby, Jerry Branson sat behind the counter, his graying hair neatly combed, but his demeanor was far less polished. Jerry had worked at the bank for over 2 decades, but his enthusiasm for the job had long since faded. To him, customers were more of an annoyance than an opportunity to serve. He leaned back in his chair, absently flipping through a stack of forms, barely glancing up as the next person in line approached. Nia made her way to Jerry's station, her posture poised and composed. She offered a polite smile and placed her briefcase on the counter. "Good morning," she began, her tone warm and professional. Jerry glanced up briefly, his eyes flickering with disinterest. Without returning her greeting, he muttered, "What do you need?" Taken aback by the curt response, Nia maintained her composure. "I'd like to discuss an account," she said evenly. Jerry frowned, his irritation thinly veiled. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but I was under the impression that—" "Well, you need one," Jerry interrupted, his voice dripping with condescension. "We don't just drop everything for walk-ins. You'll have to come back later." Several customers in the lobby glanced over, sensing the tension in the exchange. A young man waiting in line raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by Jerry's tone. Nia, however, remained calm. She opened her briefcase and retrieved a folder. "I believe this might clarify things," she said, sliding the folder across the counter. Jerry barely glanced at it before shoving it back toward her. "Look, I don't have time for this," he snapped. "If you can't follow procedure, that's not my problem." The dismissiveness in his voice was palpable, and Nia's patience was wearing thin. She straightened her shoulders and locked eyes with Jerry. "May I speak with your manager?" Jerry let out a derisive laugh. "Seriously? Over what? This isn't some charity where you can demand special treatment. You people always want exceptions." The room fell silent. Nia's jaw tightened, but she didn't react to the insult. The young man in line stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable. "Hey, man, that's uncalled for," he said. Jerry shot him a glare. "Mind your business. You're not involved." Nia took a slow breath, her expression unreadable. She calmly closed her briefcase, her movements deliberate. "I'll return later," she said quietly, her voice steady but carrying an edge that hinted at deeper resolve. As she turned to leave, Jerry muttered under his breath, "Good riddance." Nia paused at the door, her hand resting on the handle. For a brief moment, she looked back at Jerry, her gaze unreadable. Then, without another word, she stepped outside, leaving the bustling bank behind. The staff and customers resumed their routines, unaware that this ordinary day was about to take an extraordinary turn. Behind her calm demeanor, Nia carried a secret that would shake the foundation of the bank, and the lives of everyone within it. Nia Patterson walked out of the bank, her heels clicking with precision on the sidewalk. The calm, collected expression she had maintained inside gave way to a subtle smile as she rounded the corner. It wasn't a smile of satisfaction but rather one of resolve, a quiet understanding that the game was just beginning. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone, dialing a number from memory. "It's exactly as we expected," she said when the line connected. Her voice was calm, but her words carried a weight of certainty. On the other end, a man's voice replied, "Are you sure you want to proceed with this?" Nia glanced back at the bank, its glass doors gleaming under the mid-morning sun. "Absolutely. I need the full report by noon," she said firmly before ending the call. She slipped her phone back into her bag and headed to a nearby cafe, her mind already racing with the next steps. Nia's journey to this moment had been anything but ordinary. Born and raised in a working-class neighborhood, she had learned early on that the world wasn't always kind to people like her. Her parents, hardworking and resilient, had instilled in her the values of perseverance and self-respect. After graduating at the top of her class, Nia had gone on to build a thriving business from scratch. Her boutique consulting firm had gained a reputation for rescuing failing enterprises, often those overlooked by traditional financiers. But beneath her professional accolades was a deeply personal mission, to dismantle the systemic barriers that had held back so many talented, capable individuals in her community. The bank, however, wasn't just another client. It was personal. Years earlier, Nia's mother had applied for a small loan at this very institution to expand her small bakery. She had been denied without explanation, despite having excellent credit and a solid business plan. The rejection had been a crushing blow, forcing her mother to abandon her dream of expansion and continue working long hours to make ends meet. Nia never forgot the disappointment in her mother's eyes or the quiet resignation that followed. When the opportunity arose to purchase the bank during its financial turmoil, Nia didn't hesitate. She saw it as more than a business acquisition, it was a chance to rewrite the narrative and create a space where people like her mother would be valued and respected. But buying the bank wasn't enough. Nia knew that real change required more than new policies or a shift in leadership. It meant confronting the toxic attitudes and behaviors embedded within the organization. That's why she hadn't announced her ownership publicly. She wanted to observe the bank as it was, to understand the culture and identify the individuals who embodied its worst traits. Jerry Branson was a textbook example. His dismissive tone, his thinly veiled prejudices, and his arrogance were precisely what Nia had suspected she would encounter. But what stood out most to her was his complete lack of accountability. He operated as if he were untouchable, secure in the belief that his years of service shielded him from any consequences. Inside the cafe, Nia sipped her coffee while reviewing documents on her laptop. The financials confirmed what she already knew: the bank was hemorrhaging money. Years of mismanagement and outdated practices had driven away customers, and morale among the staff was at an all-time low. The previous owners had seen the writing on the wall and sold the institution at a bargain price, eager to wash their hands of the mess. Nia's phone buzzed with a notification. The full report had arrived. She opened it, her eyes scanning the detailed analysis. It was worse than she had anticipated. Beyond the financial struggles, there were numerous complaints about discriminatory practices, all swept under the rug by the former management. Her focus sharpened as she read through the customer feedback. One entry caught her attention: a single mother denied a loan despite meeting all the qualifications. Another detailed a small business owner who had been charged exorbitant fees without explanation. Each story painted a picture of an institution that had lost sight of its purpose, to serve its community. By the time Nia finished reading, her determination had solidified into a plan. She sent a series of emails to her legal team, outlining the steps for her next move. Then she made another call. "Harold," she said when the line connected. Harold Thompson, the bank manager, had been a staple at the institution for nearly as long as Jerry. Unlike Jerry, Harold wasn't overtly rude or dismissive, but he was complacent, a yes man who prioritized maintaining the status quo over addressing real problems. "Yes, Ms. Patterson?" Harold's voice was polite but cautious. "I'll be stopping by the bank later this afternoon," Nia said. "I'd like to review the employee files and speak with you about the bank's future direction." Harold hesitated, clearly unsure of her intentions. Of course, I'll make the necessary arrangements. Nia ended the call, knowing that her presence would set off a wave of speculation. Good. It was time to shake things up. As she left the cafe and walked back toward the bank, she noticed the small details she hadn't fully registered before: the faded sign above the entrance, the worn carpeting visible through the glass doors, and the weary expressions of the customers inside. It was a bank in decline, but to Nia, it was a blank canvas, a chance to build something better. By the time she stepped through the doors again, the atmosphere had shifted. Jerry glanced up from his station, his face tightening when he recognized her. This time, she didn't approach the counter. Instead, she walked straight to Harold's office, her stride purposeful. The staff exchanged confused glances, and the young man from earlier nudged the person next to him, whispering, "Who is she?" Jerry watched her disappear into the manager's office, his irritation simmering just below the surface. He had no idea that the woman he had dismissed so easily was about to turn his world upside down. The murmurs of curiosity and speculation rippled through the bank as Nia closed the door to Harold's office behind her. Harold Thompson stood from his desk, extending a hand nervously as he glanced at her briefcase. His tailored suit was immaculate, but his demeanor betrayed unease. He had been told of the new ownership weeks ago but had yet to meet the mysterious buyer. Now, seeing her in person, Harold was clearly trying to gauge her intentions. "Ms. Patterson," he began with a professional smile, "it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I wasn't expecting you today, but I've prepared some." Nia raised a hand gently, cutting him off without a hint of malice. "Let's not waste time with pleasantries, Mr. Thompson. I'm here to address the state of this bank, and I'll be frank, it's unacceptable." Harold's smile faltered. He gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing, her presence commanding the room. Nia placed her briefcase on his desk and opened it, withdrawing several neatly organized files. She spread them out with precision, each one bearing the names of employees, financial reports, and customer complaints. Harold's eyes widened as he realized the extent of her preparation. "Do you know what this is?" Nia asked, her voice calm but firm. Harold hesitated. "I assume, those are performance evaluations and financial records?" "These," Nia said, tapping the files, "are the stories of your failure to lead. Complaints of discriminatory practices. Rejected loan applications with no explanation. Employee misconduct reports that were ignored or, worse, covered up. And this," she added, pulling out a spreadsheet, "is the financial data that proves this bank has been hemorrhaging funds under your watch." Harold's face flushed with embarrassment. "A mess. Patterson, I assure you, we've been doing our best under challenging circumstances. The financial crisis hit us hard, and we've been working to recover." "Recover?" Nia interrupted, raising an eyebrow. "Your idea of recovery seems to involve alienating the very community this bank is supposed to serve. Tell me, Mr. Thompson, do you think your staff reflects the diversity of this town?" Harold opened his mouth to respond but faltered, clearly unsure of how to answer. Nia didn't wait for him to stumble through an excuse. "I'll answer for you, it doesn't," she said. "And the result is a culture that allows someone like Jerry Branson to dismiss a customer, no, a co-owner of this institution, with disdain and prejudice." Harold's eyes widened in alarm. "Jerry didn't know who you were. If he had—" "That's exactly the point," Nia said sharply. "He shouldn't have to know who I am to treat me with respect. Do you realize what that says about your leadership? About this bank?" Harold slumped slightly in his chair, the weight of her words sinking in. Nia softened her tone but didn't lose her edge. "I'm not here to point fingers, Mr. Thompson. I'm here to fix this mess. But I need to know if you're capable of being part of the solution. Can you lead when the old ways no longer work? Or should I start looking for someone who can?" The challenge hung in the air, and for a moment, Harold looked as though he might crumble. Then, to Nia's surprise, he straightened in his chair. "You're right," he admitted, his voice steady. "I've let things slide for too long, and that's on me. But I want to do better. I want this bank to be better. Tell me what you need, and I'll make it happen." Nia studied him carefully, her gaze unwavering. "Good," she said finally. "Then here's what's going to happen. Effective immediately, I'm implementing a comprehensive review of this bank's operations. Every policy, every employee, every transaction, nothing is off limits. And that includes you, Mr. Thompson." Harold nodded, his jaw tightening with resolve. Nia continued, "I'll be addressing the staff in an hour. I suggest you prepare them for what's coming because this isn't a consultation, Mr. Thompson. It's a transformation." With that, she gathered her files and left his office, leaving Harold to grapple with the weight of her words. Outside, the tension in the lobby was palpable. Employees whispered to one another, stealing glances at Nia as she moved through the room with quiet authority. Jerry Branson, sitting stiffly at his desk, avoided her gaze, though his face was flushed with irritation and unease. When Nia approached the counter, she placed her hands on the polished wood and leaned in slightly. Jerry looked up, his expression a mix of defiance and discomfort. "Mr. Branson," Nia said, her voice smooth but firm, "I'll be holding a staff meeting shortly. I suggest you attend." Jerry's jaw tightened, and he opened his mouth to respond, but Nia had already turned away. She didn't need to hear his excuses. As the minutes ticked by, the staff gathered in the conference room, their curiosity and anxiety mounting. Nia stood at the head of the table, her presence commanding but not overbearing. Harold took a seat near the back, his expression serious. "Good afternoon," Nia began, her voice steady and clear. "Some of you know me as a customer who walked in earlier today. Others may have heard rumors about new ownership. Let me clarify. I am Nia Patterson, and as of last month, I am the owner of this bank." A ripple of surprise swept through the room. Jerry shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his face growing redder by the second. "I didn't buy this bank to preserve the status quo," Nia continued. "I bought it because I believe in what it could be, a cornerstone of this community, a place where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. But let me be clear, change is coming, and not everyone will be comfortable with it." She allowed her words to sink in before continuing. "Starting today, we will be rebuilding this institution from the ground up. That means new policies, new training, and, if necessary, new staff. If you're willing to grow and adapt, you'll find me to be a fair and supportive leader. But if you can't or won't rise to the challenge, this isn't the place for you." Her eyes locked briefly with Jerry's, and he looked away, his jaw clenched. "I'm giving everyone the opportunity to step up," Nia said. "But know this, mediocrity and prejudice have no place here. We're better than that, and this community deserves better than that." As she concluded her speech, the room fell silent. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, and each employee seemed to be grappling with their own thoughts. For Nia, this was only the beginning. The true test would come in the days and weeks ahead as she began the arduous process of transforming the bank, and the people within it, into something greater than they ever imagined. The following weeks marked the beginning of a seismic shift within the walls of the bank. Nia wasted no time implementing her vision, moving with the precision of a general on a mission. Her first step was to engage a professional consulting team specializing in diversity, equity, and inclusion to evaluate every facet of the institution's operations. The team arrived within days, armed with detailed questionnaires, observation checklists, and strategies for uncovering the root causes of the bank's dysfunction. Staff members were pulled into one-on-one interviews, group discussions, and training sessions that forced them to confront uncomfortable truths. Jerry Branson, who had tried to downplay his behavior as a misunderstanding, found himself under intense scrutiny. His file was flagged as one of several requiring immediate attention. As part of the overhaul, Nia insisted on sitting in on each department's review sessions. She wanted to hear directly from employees, unfiltered and unscripted. The conference room became her temporary office, its long table piled high with binders, reports, and laptops. Staff members would enter one by one, their faces a mixture of apprehension and curiosity, unsure of what to expect from the new boss. One morning, as Nia prepared for a meeting with the loan department, Harold entered the room carrying a stack of documents. His demeanor had shifted noticeably since their first encounter. Gone was the hesitance, replaced by a quiet determination to prove himself. "These are the flagged loan rejections you asked for," Harold said, placing the files on the table. "I've also included notes on cases where appeals were ignored or mishandled." Nia looked up from her laptop, her sharp eyes meeting his. "Thank you, Harold. And the corrective actions?" Harold nodded. "I've already started working with the legal team to draft new policies. We're also reviewing applications from the past 2 years to identify cases where applicants were unfairly denied." "Good," Nia said, offering a rare but genuine smile. "Keep me updated." As Harold left, Nia opened the first file, her expression hardening as she read. The details were as egregious as she had suspected. Qualified applicants turned away without justification, disproportionately affecting women and minorities. The pattern was undeniable, and it fueled her resolve. Later that day, Nia conducted a town hall meeting for the staff. The employees gathered in the largest conference room, their nervous energy palpable. Jerry sat in the back, his arms crossed and his expression set in a scowl, while Harold stood near the front, flipping through his notes. Nia took her place at the podium, scanning the room before speaking. "When I took over this bank, I told you that change was coming. Today, I want to share what that means, and why it's necessary." She paused, letting her words sink in. "For too long, this institution has operated in a way that betrays the trust of the community it serves. Discrimination, inefficiency, and complacency have taken root, and the consequences are evident in our financial performance and customer relationships. This stops now." Nia motioned to the screen behind her, which lit up with a slide showing key findings from the review process. The data was stark: a sharp decline in customer satisfaction, numerous unresolved complaints, and a significant drop in new account openings. "Change isn't just a moral imperative," Nia continued. "It's a business necessity. If we don't rebuild this bank from the ground up, it won't survive. And rebuilding starts with accountability." The room grew tense as she shifted her gaze toward Jerry, whose face flushed with a mix of anger and unease. "Every employee will be held to the highest standards of professionalism and integrity. Those who refuse to adapt will be asked to leave." Jerry opened his mouth to speak, but Nia cut him off with a raised hand. "This isn't a negotiation, Mr. Branson. It's a reality check." The silence that followed was heavy, but Nia pressed on. "At the same time, I believe in second chances. For those willing to learn and grow, I'm offering comprehensive training programs to help you succeed in this new era. But the choice is yours." After the meeting, the atmosphere among the staff was a mixture of relief and apprehension. Some employees, inspired by Nia's vision, began to embrace the changes, eager to contribute to a brighter future. Others, like Jerry, clung stubbornly to the old ways, their resistance a source of tension. Outside the bank, Nia's efforts were already making waves. Word had spread about the new ownership and the sweeping changes underway. Local business owners, many of whom had been alienated by the bank's previous management, began reaching out with cautious optimism. One afternoon, Nia met with a group of small business owners in the community center. Among them was Maria Lopez, a baker who had struggled for years to secure financing to expand her family-owned bakery. Maria's story reminded Nia of her mother, and it fueled her determination to make the bank a resource rather than a barrier. I'm not here to make empty promises, Nia told the group. But I can promise you this, our doors will be open, and we will listen. The days of dismissing your dreams as too risky or not viable are over. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she said. It's been so hard to keep going, but knowing someone finally cares, it means everything. Back at the bank, Jerry's fate was sealed during his performance review. Confronted with a mountain of evidence documenting his misconduct, he offered excuses and deflections, but Nia remained firm. Your behavior doesn't align with the values we're building here, she said. You've had opportunities to change, and you've chosen not to. Today is your last day. Jerry's departure sent a clear message: Nia wasn't afraid to make tough decisions. For the remaining staff, it was a turning point, a reminder that the new era was real and that their actions mattered. As the days turned into weeks, the bank began to transform. The new policies and training programs created a culture of accountability and respect. Customers returned, drawn by the fresh energy and genuine commitment to service. One morning, as Nia walked through the lobby, she saw Maria standing at the counter, holding a folder of loan documents. The teller assisting her was patient and attentive, guiding her through the process with a smile. Maria looked up and caught Nia's eye, mouthing the words, "Thank you." Nia nodded, her heart swelling with quiet pride. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time in years, the bank, and the community, had hope. The transformation of the bank was well underway, but Nia knew that true change wasn't just about implementing policies or firing the wrong people, it was about building trust. For years, the bank had been seen as a symbol of exclusion and disinterest, a fortress of bureaucracy that only served the privileged. Nia's vision was to tear down those walls and replace them with bridges, reconnecting the institution to the heart of the community. Her first major public initiative was a Community Solutions Summit, held in the bank's newly renovated conference space. Invitations went out to local leaders, small business owners, educators, and residents. Nia wanted to hear directly from the people, to understand their struggles and aspirations, and to showcase the bank's commitment to being part of the solution. The summit was standing room only, buzzing with energy and cautious optimism. The once cold and sterile room was transformed with colorful banners proclaiming, "Your voice, our mission." A catered spread from Maria Lopez's bakery added a welcoming touch, and Nia made sure every detail reflected her commitment to inclusivity. As she stepped up to the podium, the room quieted. Nia's presence commanded attention, not through intimidation, but through authenticity. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady but warm. "When I took over this bank, I made a promise to myself, we wouldn't just serve this community, we'd partner with it. Today marks the beginning of that partnership." She spoke candidly about the bank's troubled history, acknowledging the mistakes of the past without deflecting responsibility. "I can't erase what's been done, but I can ensure it never happens again. And more importantly, I can ensure that this bank becomes a place where everyone is welcome and supported." The crowd responded with nods and murmurs of agreement. Nia then invited participants to share their stories. One by one, community members stood to speak, farmers struggling with unpredictable markets, single mothers balancing work and childcare, entrepreneurs facing barriers to funding. Nia listened intently, jotting down notes and asking thoughtful questions. When it was Maria's turn, she stood with a quiet confidence that hadn't been there weeks before. "I've run my bakery for 10 years, she began. "And for most of that time, I felt invisible to the institutions that were supposed to help me. But today, I don't feel invisible. Today, I feel heard." Applause erupted, and Nia couldn't help but smile. Maria's journey was proof that progress was possible, and it fueled her determination to push even harder. Behind the scenes, Nia's team was working tirelessly to implement the feedback from the summit. Loan products were redesigned to be more accessible to small businesses and first-time homeowners. A financial literacy program was launched, offering free workshops on budgeting, investing, and entrepreneurship. The bank even partnered with local schools to create a youth mentorship program, connecting students with professionals in fields like finance, technology, and healthcare. As the bank's reputation began to improve, so did its bottom line. New accounts poured in, and the once dwindling customer base surged. Harold, now fully invested in the bank's transformation, became one of Nia's most trusted allies. He spearheaded initiatives to modernize the bank's technology and streamline operations, ensuring that efficiency didn't come at the cost of personal connection. But not everyone was thrilled with the changes. A small but vocal group of critics, including some former employees like Jerry Branson, accused Nia of pandering to political correctness and abandoning traditional banking values. They spread rumors and posted inflammatory comments online, attempting to sow doubt about her leadership. Nia refused to be distracted. "Let them talk," she told Harold during a meeting. "The results will speak for themselves." And they did. By the end of the first quarter under Nia's leadership, the bank reported its strongest financial performance in years. More importantly, it had become a beacon of hope in the community, a place where dreams were nurtured, not dismissed. One day, Nia received a letter in the mail. The envelope was plain, but the handwriting was neat and deliberate. Inside was a handwritten note that read, "Dear Ms. Patterson, I was wrong about you. When I first heard about the changes you were making, I thought you were just another outsider with big ideas and no understanding of how things work here. But I've watched what you've done, and I can't deny the impact you've had. You've made me see things differently, and for that, I thank you. A former skeptic." Nia folded the letter and placed it in her desk drawer, her heart swelling with quiet pride. For every detractor, there were countless more who believed in her mission. The real test of the bank's transformation came during an economic downturn that struck the region unexpectedly. Businesses struggled, and families found themselves facing financial uncertainty. It was a moment that could have undone everything Nia had worked for. Instead, the bank rose to the challenge. Emergency relief programs were rolled out within days, providing low-interest loans and payment deferrals to those in need. Staff members, now fully aligned with the bank's new values, worked tirelessly to assist customers, often staying late into the night to process applications. Nia led by example, spending long hours in the office and personally reaching out to community leaders to coordinate efforts. Her tireless dedication inspired everyone around her, and together, they weathered the storm. When the crisis passed, the community emerged stronger and more united than ever. The bank was no longer just a financial institution, it was a cornerstone of hope and resilience. On a sunny afternoon, as Nia walked through the bustling lobby, she paused to take it all in. The chatter of satisfied customers, the smiles of employees who had found purpose in their work, and the sight of Maria Lopez handing out pastries to staff members, it was everything she had envisioned and more. Nia knew the journey was far from over. There would always be challenges, always more work to be done. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction, knowing she had made a difference. The legacy of the bank was no longer defined by its past mistakes but by its potential to shape a better future. And as Nia stepped outside into the bright sunlight, she felt a profound sense of gratitude, for the journey, for the people who had trusted her, and for the opportunity to create something truly meaningful. The bank's transformation became a symbol of change not only for the local community but for the broader region. Word of its turnaround spread, drawing attention from media outlets and industry leaders. Reporters visited to document the once struggling institution's resurgence under Nia's leadership, marveling at the blend of financial success and community impact. However, while the spotlight was encouraging, Nia remained focused on the work ahead. Her next initiative was ambitious, to position the bank as a regional leader in green financing. Partnering with local environmental groups and renewable energy companies, Nia introduced a suite of products designed to support sustainable projects. Homeowners could access low-interest loans for installing solar panels, businesses could finance energy-efficient upgrades, and farmers could modernize their operations with eco-friendly equipment. The Green Financing Initiative sparked excitement but also skepticism. A town hall meeting drew a packed audience, including both supporters and critics. Some questioned the practicality of prioritizing sustainability in a region still grappling with economic challenges. Nia listened patiently, acknowledging the concerns without wavering in her conviction. This isn't just about protecting the environment, she explained. It's about securing our future. Energy costs are rising, and outdated practices are holding us back. By investing in sustainability, we're making our community stronger, more competitive, and more resilient. Her words resonated with many, but it was the early adopters who truly set the stage for success. A local farmer, David, became a vocal advocate after using the bank's program to install a drip irrigation system that drastically reduced water waste. At a subsequent meeting, he stood up and shared his story. "I was hesitant at first," David admitted. "But this program didn't just help my farm, it saved it. My costs are down, my yields are up, and I'm not worried about running out of water during the dry season. This isn't just about being green, it's smart business." David's testimony galvanized others, and applications for the green financing program surged. The bank's reputation as an innovator grew, drawing new customers from neighboring towns. Harold, who had become one of Nia's closest confidants, took the lead on integrating cutting-edge technology into the bank's operations, ensuring that its services remained efficient and accessible. As the months passed, Nia found herself reflecting on how far they had come. The bank's transformation had demanded relentless effort, but it had also yielded profound rewards. The institution was thriving financially, but more importantly, it had become a source of pride for the community, a place where people felt valued and supported. One morning, as Nia reviewed reports in her office, her assistant knocked and entered with a letter. The envelope was embossed with the logo of a prestigious industry association. Curious, Nia opened it and read the contents. It was an invitation to deliver the keynote address at the upcoming National Banking Leadership Summit. The organizers praised her work in revitalizing the bank and highlighted her innovative approach to combining profitability with social responsibility. The invitation was both an honor and an opportunity. Nia saw it as a chance to share her vision on a larger stage and to inspire other institutions to rethink their roles in their communities. But it also brought new challenges. Public speaking wasn't her strong suit, and the prospect of addressing a room full of seasoned executives made her stomach knot. Harold, sensing her apprehension, offered encouragement. "You've been leading this bank through uncharted waters. Talking about it is the easy part, you just have to tell the truth." Taking his advice to heart, Nia spent weeks preparing for the summit. She worked with a speech coach to hone her message, focusing on the transformative power of empathy, accountability, and innovation. By the time she stepped onto the stage, she felt a mix of nerves and determination. The audience was silent as she began, her voice steady but passionate. "When I took over a failing bank, I wasn't just inheriting a business, I was inheriting a legacy of mistrust. Rebuilding that legacy wasn't just about fixing balance sheets. It was about listening to people, understanding their struggles, and showing them that a bank can be more than a place to store money. It can be a partner in building a better future." Her speech was met with a standing ovation, and after the event, executives from across the country approached her with questions, eager to learn from her experience. Some even expressed interest in replicating her strategies in their own institutions. Back home, the recognition added to the bank's growing prestige. But Nia remained grounded, knowing that awards and accolades were secondary to the real impact of her work. She continued to hold open-door sessions with employees and customers, always seeking ways to improve. One afternoon, while walking through the lobby, she spotted a familiar face, Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly woman who had been refused service on that fateful day when Nia first arrived at the bank. Mrs. Jenkins was sitting with a teller, finalizing a loan for home repairs. Nia approached, her smile warm. "Mrs. Jenkins, it's so good to see you. How's everything going?" Mrs. Jenkins looked up, her face breaking into a grin. "Much better, thanks to you. I never thought I'd live to see the day when this bank actually cared about people like me." Her words stayed with Nia long after their conversation ended. They were a reminder of why she had taken on this monumental task in the first place, not for recognition or personal gain, but to create something meaningful. As Nia stood by the bank's front doors, watching customers come and go, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had been anything but easy, but it had been worth every challenge, every sleepless night. The bank wasn't just a place of business anymore, it was a pillar of the community, a testament to what could be achieved when vision, determination, and compassion came together. And in that moment, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast a warm glow over the bustling street, Nia knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning.